Welcome to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success. I'm also excited to share my book, Straight from the Admissions Office, a review of my biggest takeaways from the first few hundred podcast episodes. It's packed with direct insights from admissions professionals and practical tips to help students and their families navigate the college admissions process. You can find all of the information in the show notes. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome back Todd Rinehart, who's the Vice Chancellor for Enrollment at the University of Denver. Todd, welcome back. It was so great to see you once again at NACAC, and here we are with a follow-up episode. How you doing today?
John, I'm doing great. It was wonderful to see you in Columbus, especially the celebrity that you became, winning the John Muir Award. It was an honor to be able to shake your hand.
Oh, man, the honor is all mine. And Todd, I'm not just saying this, as the Vice Chancellor for Enrollment at the University of Denver, when we go to the NACAC conference, you are one of those guys that everyone looks up to. You are a leader amongst leaders in this thing we call college admissions. So honestly, it's a pleasure to have you here, Todd, and thank you for the kind words about the John B. Muir Award. Now, since our first conversation, Todd, back in May of 2023, what are the most significant updates or changes at the University of Denver, whether academic programs, campus initiatives, or shifts in your admissions process?
Well, it's hard to believe how many things do change and evolve in just such a short time. But I've got to start with, we won the National Hockey Championship. So national champions, and if the viewers could see behind me, I do have the championship banners, replicas of the banners hanging right behind me. We were close to hanging another one last year. We were beat in the Frozen Four in the semifinal game. But 2 years ago, we did win the whole thing, which is our 10th National Hockey Championship, which puts us number one in the country for the most championships, ahead of our friends in Ann Arbor, University of Michigan.
Wow, well, that's terrific. And again, we congratulate you on the hockey championship. Now, the University of Denver's mission emphasizes preparing students for lives of purpose, leadership, and of course, service. How does that philosophy show up in everyday campus life and the overall student experience?
Well, it starts with our four-dimensional student experience that we talked about probably in 23, but it's really evolved and become far more integrated into the curriculum, all the extracurricular activities that our students are doing. And let me just take a second to tell you what is 4D? What are these dimensions? One, it's our promise to students that in your 4-year experience, we're going to expand your mind intellectually and really allow you to focus on academics. We're going to focus and help you expand and explore your character and ethics. We're going to help you develop skills and competencies around well-being, both mental and physical well-being. And then fourth, really help you work on your career goals, your ambitions, your professional journey, but also living a life of purpose. So it starts with those four dimensions, the 4D experience. But from there, we really integrate into our curriculum where we give our students that baseline of knowledge. And, we are a liberal arts university, but with professional schools, which is a great combination. Also for a mid-sized school to have Division I athletics, that we have some unique things you can check off the box about Denver. But you're going to take your core curriculum across 5 undergraduate colleges and schools to kind of form that baseline of knowledge, but in a liberal way across multiple disciplines, right? And the sciences, the social sciences, business, math, you name it. But then you go into greater depth once you get into your major. And we do have all the programs in social sciences and arts and humanities, right? You could do economics, you could do psychology, you could do political science, but we also have business. We have engineering. We have our Corbell School of Global Studies, right? Which focuses on international studies and public policy. So there's a lot of different things our students can pursue at DU, but that's that baseline classroom knowledge outside. And I think where the 4D kicks in is they take the knowledge into kind of the outside experiences. So doing research, doing internships, study abroad is big at DU. If you want to study abroad, we need to be one of the 2 or 3 schools you're applying to because we do it truthfully better than anyone with the number of students who go, well over 70%, but also the number of universities you can choose from and different continents and countries. Also very seamless. Your merit awards, your financial aid, everything still applies. So it's financially very possible and affordable to go abroad. So it's experiences like that I think we integrated into that 4D kind of value proposition for our students.
Oh, I think you've done a great job explaining how you look at the total person under your four-dimensional student experience, namely academics, character and ethics, physical and mental well-being, along with career goals and living a life of purpose. And of course, so many students and their families, they listen in because they want to hear about that thing we call the holistic review process. So Todd, can you walk us through the University of Denver's holistic review, and how do you balance academics, essays, extracurriculars, and personal qualities when reviewing those applications?
You bet. And I think it's appropriate that we're holistic admission. We just talked about the holistic education we're going to provide and the breadth and depth there. Well, it has to start in the admission process, right? That you're not just a number, you're not just a GPA or a test score, that certainly academics are the main driver of our decisions, but we're looking for people who are going to be great classmates, great roommates, people that you'd want to spend time with in and out of the classroom. So where does that start? Clearly, we're going to read the entire application. We're going to read your essay. And what are we looking for in the essay? And we will probably talk even more about this later, but essentially, we're wanting to learn about you beyond just the classes you've taken and your grades. That the essay is really the opportunity for the students to give voice to their application and allow us to get to know you because we're shaping a class. If I'm trying to enroll great roommates and great classmates, we need to know a little bit about that person besides just their academic preparation. We're also going to look at the teacher and the counselor recommendations. And sometimes a student might submit a recommendation from a boss at work or one of their athletic coaches or their rabbi, their pastor. We really are trying to get a sense of who is this person. And, let's be honest, at a selected private university, most of the students applying to us academically, they are prepared. They have that baseline of knowledge and expertise and experience. They will thrive academically at our school. So what we're really doing is trying to shape and find some of those other qualities.
We appreciate the fact that you emphasize you're looking to shape a class, right? And so, of course, the academics are important because you want to ensure that you're admitting students that can, in fact, handle the rigors of the coursework once they're at the beautiful University of Denver. But I also appreciate how you're talking about you're looking for students that are going to be great roommates, great classmates. And one of the aspects of the overall application that you pointed to that helped you determine that is that thing we call the personal statement or the essay. Todd, would you be able to share an example of a personal statement that resonated with you in terms of the topic that the student selected? Because so many people get stuck on the topic. They think, for example, that it has to be something tragic or something really sad. So is there one example of something that really resonated with you and the folks in your admissions office?
Yeah, I want people to relax and not stress out about the essay because exactly what you're talking about. Our team is not looking for the perfect topic, the perfect essay. Most people, thank goodness, at age 17 or 18, they haven't had tragedy. Some unfortunately have, right? But you shouldn't have to press and feel like I'm not going to get in unless I have some tragic story or if I didn't cure cancer or no, guess what? You're 17 years old, right? You might be 18 by the time you graduate your senior year, but we don't expect that you're coming in with the experiences of a 40-year-old adult. And I always tell students, write about what I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Just we want to learn. When we get 20,000 applications, we just want to learn that you're an interesting person. So we're not judging your hobbies, your activities, what you're writing about. The topic is your choice. What we're evaluating is one, can you write at the college level? And by the way, we don't expect you to come in as a perfect writer either. That's one of the reasons you go to college and you take first year writing, right? And all 3 quarters, fall, winter, and spring, that we're going to advance your writing skills too in college. And then you'll advance them even further once you get into your major. But we're not looking, but we want to look and make sure that you're prepared to do some college level writing out of the gate. We want to see that you're organizing your thoughts. You can tie your paragraphs together, that your story makes sense. But what do we really want? Instead of getting our red pens out and circling things, we really want to know is, who are you? And with no judgment on who you are or what you're doing, what your passions are, that we just want to get a sense of who you are, kind of your curiosity for learning, your vision for what you're hoping to get out of college. Um, the good ones are really where I leave feeling like I just met the person.
Well, that's great, Todd. Thank you so much for sharing that insight. And so, students, again, don't stress out so much on the topic itself, but conveying who you are as a person, right? It's your opportunity, because most colleges, with over 20,000 applications, most colleges are not conducting one-on-one interviews. And so you need to show off your personality in that personal statement. Now, Todd, how does the University of Denver assess the rigor of a student's curriculum? For example, honors, AP, IB, or even dual enrollment, especially relative to what's available at their high school? And do you recalculate GPAs or evaluate them in context?
All of the above, John. Yes, 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 and yes, right? So, um, one, it starts with your transcript, and we are looking at the curriculum. And to your point, in the context of where they go to school, right? Like some high schools don't offer calculus or higher levels of math or science. You're not going to be penalized because of that. That's where you go to high school. So we'll want to see if you taken a progressively rigorous curriculum at your school, whatever that is at your school. If your school offers honors in AP and IB, great. We would love to see you challenge yourself. Those classes are proven to be really good preparation for the rigor of college work, that it does provide evidence that you can handle that. But we also know if you're not taking those, there's still a spot for you at DU. And what we're also looking for, if your school offers 20 AP classes, we're not necessarily expecting you to take 20 or 18 or even 15. Take what makes sense for you on your academic and your personal journey and your goals. And, but I'd certainly it'd be great to see someone, once your school allows it, because some people don't allow a ninth or 10th grader to take an AP course. And we understand that context at each of the schools, but once you're allowed to be taking that advanced curriculum, I do think it's appropriate to take a couple every year, 2 or 3. I don't think it's appropriate, unless you're a superstar student, to really be able to handle 4 or 5 at the same time. We see that sometimes. And by the way, there are students that take 5 of those every semester and they're getting A's on all of them. But I also see people who are super smart and they're high achieving students, but because they've overscheduled themselves, they might get a C or a D even in one of those classes. And it's because, my gosh, why are you taking AP Calc, AP Chemistry, right? AP Name the Language. That's a lot of really challenging courses to be just the homework alone and the hours at night. That's not realistic. And even in college, you're not going to be doing that. So I want to caution, great if you can handle it, just like if you're a Division I athlete, but there's only maybe 1 or 2 Division I athletes at most high schools, right? Academically, the same analogy. There's probably only a couple students in every senior class who can really truly handle 5 AP classes a semester. That I want people to balance that out too. Take a realistic challenge, take what you can. We're going to evaluate. We want to see that you've progressively, done that. We want to see, even grade wise, maybe by the time you're in your 3rd or 4th year of high school, your grades are getting a little better. You've created better study habits, better competencies and skills in these academic areas that it's not unusual to see a 9th grader sometimes get a C or a B. And then by the time they're a senior, they're more of an A student. We'd love to see that journey.
Well, that's terrific. I think you did an awesome job explaining the question. Students, did you take a progressively rigorous curriculum based on what is available in your high school? They're looking at the ramps that you built. And I appreciate the example where there's a school that offers 20 APs. Perhaps they don't allow 9th and 10th graders to take those APs. Now, you would know about that in your office because you look at what's called the school profile, which hopefully outlines that. And the fact that you mentioned, look, take two, take three APs, whatever it is that is the right fit for you academically, I think that's great advice. Now, another piece of the overall application, of course, are recommendation letters, and some can feel generic, I'm sure, when you're reading them, Todd. So, what makes a letter of recommendation stand out at the University of Denver, and what qualities or insights are particularly meaningful for your readers?
Yeah, going back to the original theme of just trying to learn more about the student other than just the classes and their grades. What we like about something from the teacher or the counselor is we're getting insights on what are they really like in the classroom. And those can speak to their work ethic, their contributions to classroom discussions, their participation, their ability to understand concepts or more complex topics. And because when you just see, hey, you took algebra 2 and you got an A, we don't know the context or the story behind that. Where a teacher or counselor can kind of open those doors and give us those insights. And that's again what we're looking for. We're trying to find students who we think can be competitive in our classrooms. Getting those stories really help us have a better understanding of their preparation.
Well, that's terrific. And the University of Denver, of course, has been test optional for several years now. Todd, what advice do you give students about whether or not to submit ACT or SAT scores? This is a question that I get all the time, by the way. And how are test scores considered if they are submitted to your team?
It's the $1 million question, John. Let's see if I have a $1 million answer. I would tell students, again, it's their choice. I think the main thing most colleges and universities were doing when we went test optional, we wanted students to feel like they had control over their applications and control over some of this admission process, that they wouldn't stress thinking that all of these things just kind of rest with the colleges. That no, you have some control too on what you present to us, how, what you write on your essay, how you write, whether you decide to submit test scores or not. I think the main thing is to go to universities' websites and look what are their middle 50% for GPAs, for SAT and ACT scores. So in other words, middle 50%, meaning throughout the top quarter and the bottom quarter, who's kind of that middle group applying there. The one disclaimer I would put, because a lot of us only have maybe 40% of our pool submitting test scores, that middle 50% might appear higher than it was, let's say, 10 years ago. Because, we have 60% of the pool not submitting scores. So I'd say get a feel competitive where you are at that school. And if your scores are in that middle or above, I would probably submit. It's just further evidence, all the things we've been talking about, the classes you take, the grades you've earned. It's just another piece of information that demonstrates your ability to be successful in college. But it's one piece, just like the essay. I don't want students stressing, one example I sometimes give on the essay, and this would be true on a test score too. Don't feel like on your essay, for example, that you have to write a Nobel Prize winning essay. Because if you have a 2.0 GPA and you write an award winning essay, we're still not admitting you, right? If you have a 4.0 GPA, and I suppose if you have a really lousy essay, yes, that could be a problem. But if you wrote a good essay, you're not, you're probably going to still be fine because your academic record really speaks for itself. That you don't have to, and I would say kind of the same thing for the test score. It can be a tipping factor, maybe up or down sometimes, but I would say even less probably on admit, deny, maybe more on the merit scholarships, where some schools maybe lean a little bit more on that. But it's really still one piece. And I would tell everyone your curriculum and your grades and those progressions we've talked about are far more important than your test score.
Well, we appreciate that. And speaking of test scores, in terms of merit-based scholarships, or even if a student is applying to a more rigorous major, are they ever required as part of your overall review?
There are some schools that do. So that's why I want students and parents to pay attention to websites to really understand what's required at each of the schools. At us, no. So even if you're an engineering applicant, test scores are not required. And ACT also now does not require the science. But we don't require the science. Again, if you want to submit the full ACT with science, good for you. If you want to submit just the 3 sub scores, good for you. And we also super score. So if you take it 2 or 3 times, SAT or ACT, we'll mix and match those sub scores. But again, let's say back to engineering. Why don't we require it? Because we know that the classes and your grades are far more predictive of your ability to handle our engineering curriculum than your test score. In fact, the test score really tells us a percentage of kind of predicting your first year GPA, but your GPA in high school is far more predictive.
Well, we appreciate that insight, and it's a good lesson for students and families that a school may say that they're test optional, but for a specific major, you mentioned engineering, and that's a great example. In some schools, it might be required if you're applying to the more rigorous majors such as engineering or nursing. But at the University of Denver, not the case. It is not required. You made that abundantly clear. Thank you, Todd. And can you share the University of Denver's enrollment goals for the incoming first year class? How many students you aim to enroll, how many applications you typically receive, and how those goals shape your strategies?
Sure. So in a typical year, and this has been true for probably a decade now, we receive about 20,000 applications. I'm not sure how many we're going to receive this year because we've been significantly up in our apps. So who knows? Maybe we'll go to the lower mid 20s this year. But from that group, we're not looking necessarily to grow our class. I suppose we'd become a little more selective if our applications continued on this trend. But we're looking to enroll a class of somewhere between 13 to 1,400 first year students. And then we also bring in about 150 transfers. So our overall undergrad population tends to be around 5,500.
Fantastic. So you receive approximately 20,000 applications. The priority is to enroll between 13 and 1,400. And let's not forget, you have about 150 of those transfer students. And of course, given those enrollment goals, Todd, how does the University of Denver approach waitlist decisions, and what factors tend to influence whether a student is admitted from the waitlist? And is there anything applicants can realistically do to strengthen their chances of coming off the waitlist?
Right. I think what's tough about the waitlist question, it literally changes every year. So I want to caution people, and this would be true at many schools, especially the last couple cycles. There have been so many things going on in the marketplace, if you will. For example, with knowing how many of our international students will be able to get visas and come, some schools, because they were worried they were going to have a significant loss in international students, they probably took more waitlist students this year. But that wasn't necessarily the case 2 years ago. It might not be the case 2 years from now. So really, every year is completely different with the wait list. I think what can students do? Really, they just need to be patient. It certainly doesn't hurt to email your respective counselor who covers your state or your high school. That would be the person that probably read your application to say, look, I'm on your wait list. I know you probably have 1,000 other students on your wait list. Just wanting you to know, do you still really top of my list that I would strongly entertain, enrolling if I was offered a spot. I'd also tell them, this is true at most schools, we don't rank students on our wait list. And I'll go back to what I said earlier. When you're shaping a class, and then May 1 comes along, and that's the deadline for everyone to deposit, and then you have a sense of where your class is to inform if you need to go to the wait list, do we need 20 or 30 more students? But you're going to look to see who's already committed. Am I short on biology majors? Am I short on business majors? Would it be great to have a few more students from New England or from California? That's why it's really hard for us to give advice to students, because we don't even know what that mix is ultimately going to land on May 1, and then what we might be looking for to kind of finish off our class.
Well, we appreciate that insight. You mentioned the international students, you mentioned perhaps you're short in a certain major, and the fact that, yes, it does change from year to year. So it's really great for students and their families to hear that right from you, Todd, from, of course, the awesome University of Denver, which, by the way, is also nationally recognized for its commitment to access and affordability, including meeting students where they are financially. So, Todd, can you walk us through how financial aid works in practice and what misconceptions you wish families better understood about cost and value?
I would say the number one takeaway I want for families, and this would be true when they're looking at public and private universities, don't be scared by the sticker price. The sticker prices are real. I get that. And certainly some families are paying that full sticker price, but in many schools, they aren't. And it's not like buying a TV or a car where you kind of go in and you have a really good sense of what it's actually going to cost. And sure, they might be running some specials at the car dealer that you can get some rebates and some incentives and things like that. But generally, you have an idea of what you're going to pay. And that the higher ed model is one of the most confusing models out there. You really don't know what you're going to pay until, you go try to buy something and you really don't find out till 3 or 4 months later what you're really going to pay. And that's because you go through the admission process, and in that period, you're evaluated for your merit scholarships. And, depending on your curriculum, your grades, your test scores, all these other factors, if you would qualify for an academic scholarship. Most of us put those in the admission letter. So you would be, hey, congrats, you're admitted to University of Denver. You've also been selected as let's say, a Chancellor Scholar, and your merit award will be $40,000, right? However, then there's this other step for low and moderate income families that need to go through the financial aid process. So at our school, you'd be submitting FAFSA. You would also be submitting the CSS profile. And just like we do a holistic review on admission, the profile especially allows us to do a holistic review on a family's ability to pay. And we're going to be looking at a lot of things that the FAFSA doesn't collect. Like, profile still considers number of siblings in college, right? The number in your family going to college, which that's an advantage for families. We're going to look at your assets and, certainly family income, but it gives us a better sense on what you'd be able to contribute to your students' education. And then how can we help with some need-based grants that would be in addition to your merit scholarship?
Well, it's good to know that you look for the FAFSA and the CSS profile. And if anyone wants more information, the latest and greatest information is to always look at the university website's tabs on the financial aid, admissions, or whatever it is that you're looking for, because you have so much information on your websites, and you as a university are updating all of those different links, which again is the latest and greatest. So I highly recommend anyone who's looking for the most updated information to go to the individual university's website. Now, Todd, you work closely, obviously, with thousands of students and families, particularly over all the years that you've been in admissions. Looking back on these interactions, what do you wish more students and parents would ask you during the admissions process?
That's a tough question, John. I think one of the things, what we just talked about, like, what is this really going to cost? Like, don't make a decision not to apply or enroll because you just think we're too expensive. Well, go through the process, be patient. Let's see. And then let's have a conversation with your financial aid advisor, your admission counselor. Let's talk about it. I think another thing I would like families to ask, instead of just latching on to some of the really tangible, quick and easy metrics, like a US News ranking or, your graduation rates or your career outcomes, those are important. I think those are good metrics to be comparing and contrasting schools for. I'm not telling people to dismiss those, but I'd like them to take a step back and be more visionary and look at a higher level and think, no, it's not just about the first job. Tell me how DU is going to help my student have a successful career, not a first job, but a career. How are they going to be a successful life, right? Like, how will they contribute to society? Will they give back to their communities? And I'll go back to when we talked about the 4D experience. That's what we're trying to do. We're shaping the minds of students and allowing them to shape their education, shape their own minds. It's not us prescribed lecturing them and teaching them what their ethics should be. We're giving them the tools to evaluate and decide their own ethics, their own morals, their own well-being, giving them competencies and skills to, have positive mental and physical well-being and health. We don't tell them, hey, do these 3 things, right? We're going to give them the tools to learn and explore and figure out what is best for them. So I wish more families would really ask questions like that don't just tell me, hey, what's your job placement rate and what are the average starting salaries? Well, that's great, but let's talk about the skills we're going to give them so they're still thriving when they're 40, 50, 60, and 70.
Well, I think that's great advice. And it sounds like you do so much to get the right students on your campus, support them while they're there, but also help them in the many career paths that graduates from the University of Denver certainly pursue. Todd, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Before I get to the last question, I always like to ask, is there a question I didn't ask or a topic that simply didn't come up that you wish to share with us now?
John, you're an award-winning podcaster. So there's absolutely nothing that you have forgotten to ask.
You're too kind, Todd. You're way, way too kind. I appreciate that. So, for those students out there and those families, what are your top three pieces of advice for students preparing for the University of Denver or similarly selective institutions?
I want students to enjoy the college admission process and not stress about this. You see things on the media or on podcasts when you've got 20 and 30 and 40,000 people applying, like, oh my gosh, how would I ever get into that school? Or if I get in, how would I ever afford it? And like we've talked about previously, go through and get your merit scholarships, get your financial aid, that you can be admitted. You pick the right schools to apply to and you're strategic there, you can get admitted. And that, yes, we will make it affordable for you and manageable. But my three tips that I really want to give them are, you don't have to be anxious about this process, because there are really, if you simplify the application process, there's 3 steps, and the students control 2 of those 3. Your parents who are in the business world would tell you, if you control 2/3 of a business transaction, that's a good deal. Sign up for that right now. So the first thing I want to remind students, you're in control of the very first step. You decide where to apply. So great that I get 20,000 apps at University of Denver. You are deciding if I'm going to apply to 3 schools, 5 schools, 15 schools, but you're also deciding which ones. If you apply to 15 that all have an admit rate of 10% or lower, you're going to have a very stressful process. That you should pick schools that would be thrilled to have you because of what you're going to contribute on their campuses. So step 1, you're in control of that. The second step does go to the colleges, but I'm also going to explain the students have some control there too. So yes, we are the ones who make the admission decisions and award merit and award financial aid. But guess what? Everything we've talked about, think of all the steps the students are in control of. The work and effort they put into their classes over 4 years, the curriculum they choose to take, the grades they earn, they have a lot of control over that. They also have control over their essay, the topics, the effort they put into that, the proofreading, the editing. So they're in control of quite a bit of even that second step. But yeah, ultimately we are in charge of who we admit. But guess what? Once those offers are out in the field, the third step goes right back to the student. They get admitted to 10 schools. They get to choose the one that they will enroll at. And I think that's really empowering and very exciting for the students.
Well, I think that's really well said. There's so much students that you do control in the process. And of course, there are things that you don't control. But in terms of the controllables, to Todd's point, if you're applying to 15 schools whose acceptance rates are 10% or less, well, guess what? Regardless of what your profile is, that is a reach school for everybody, because schools are receiving far more applications from qualified students than those seats available. So, Todd, that is tremendous insight in terms of considering what you control and what you don't control. This was awesome. You're terrific. Thank you so much for coming back, Todd.
Thank you, John. I really enjoyed it.
It was our pleasure. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care all, and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.